A quick background on myself. I was raised throughout the Midwest. My parents were kind of a non-denominational Christian, and we went to church several times throughout the year, but not every Sunday, and we didn't really practice church at home or Christianity at home. Mm-hmm. And I remember from a young age that just thinking that, a lot of it didn't make sense to me, and a lot of my questions weren't being answered. So sometime when I was a teenager, I became an atheist, but I never really came out to anyone about it. I got married at 19, and my now ex-wife, she was a self-proclaimed Christian, but she didn't really practice either, and she knew that I wasn't religious. Fast forward 5 years, and her father started getting really serious with religion, started preaching at his church back at our hometown, and she started following suit and becoming more religious about the same time that we had our daughter. And about 2 years later, we got a divorce, and she gets to see my daughter about 75% of the year, so much more than I do. And she's continued down that path, just becoming more and more religious throughout the years, and, teaching that to my daughter. Yeah. Around the age of 3 or 4, I tried different ways of talking to my daughter just to get her to ask more questions and, try to figure out why she was believing. And unfortunately, every time I talk to her about it, it's pretty clear that she's brainwashed and, just believes whatever her mom is telling her about religion.
Which for a kid that age is normal, by the way.
Okay, yeah,
so
that's what I figured. But
completely developmentally appropriate for a child that age to believe everything their parents tell them.
Okay. I did buy a couple children's books. Like one was Different Religions of the World, just to kind of give her some exposure to show her that, not everyone believes in, God and Jesus. Mm-hmm. And the other book was like the Greek gods. I tried explaining to her that, we used to use gods to explain things, but now, we have science and we figure out how things actually work. Mm-hmm. So I guess I'm calling to see if you have any advice or if you know any resources that could help me, teach her.
So this question comes up kind of frequently on the show, and what you're doing is you're starting the process of inoculation by teaching her mythologies from other traditions, like the Greek gods. Expand that out, Greek and Roman gods, Norse gods. Let her know there's like this broad landscape of mythology out there, and that it's not just Christianity. Teach her about Judaism, teach her about Islam. And there's a whole bunch of other religions in the Middle East that kind of influenced how Christianity developed. Teach her those too, because then when she sees that stuff, when someone teaches her that in the Bible, she'll have a reference for that. It's like, oh, well, that came from, this other tradition out there. And teach her about typological tales. There's a lot of them in the Bible. It's like the motherlode of typologies. What you're doing, you're on the right path. And you said that she's, 7 years old now?
Yeah, she's 7.5.
All right, so she's now old enough where she can start to question these things. But she probably doesn't because, her mom probably teaches her not to question things.
Right.
So you get to be the cool parent who lets her question everything. And just keep that door open for her. And then when she asks you what you believe, you're her other parent. You have a right to share your beliefs as well.
Yeah.
So don't be shy about telling her you don't believe that there are any gods and you don't believe that stuff in the Bible is true.
Right, and I do share that, and it's interesting because every time I do, she always seems shocked, which just kind of tells me that, I'm like the only person that's, saying that stuff to her.
Right.
But it was also amusing when she was like 4 and I started talking to her about this. She was almost condescending, like I wasn't expecting it because she felt like she was right and I was wrong, and she knew more about God and Jesus than me. So I wasn't expecting that. It was interesting.
She's been learning that too at her mom's church. But I agree. I think you're absolutely doing the right thing. I would maybe add some, now that she's 7, add some critical thinking types of materials. There's a lot of good books that kind of help develop critical thinking in kids, and just teach her to question everything, even in the real world, and how things work. I'm trying to think of, what's Dale McGowan's group?
Oh,
Secular parenting?
yeah,
Or?
he's got the secular parenting thing, Parenting Beyond Belief.
I think look
think
for, Google Dale McGowan. There's a website I know, and I think he's written a book on secular parenting with some good ideas for how to foster those kinds of things. Yeah,
but on that critical thinking stuff, one of the things I started doing with my son, because I noticed that he was watching TV and a commercial would come on, and it was about, something, kid related, and it would hook him right in. He'd believe it, And so we started looking at commercials and talking about whether we think this is true or not, and how can we tell if this is true or not. And that's an awesome way of getting kids to start thinking about stuff in a way that it's not even about religion. It's just about how to think properly, how to evaluate claims. And why would someone tell you something on TV that's not true?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, she's got a pretty questioning attitude, so I think that's a good route to go down.
And I think you'll find that you're planting a lot of seeds that will bloom later. So don't worry too much at this point about how you're only getting quarter time. That stuff is going to sink in with her, so keep at it for sure. And when she gets a little bit older, she'll start thinking a lot more about this stuff. So it's good that you're planting the seeds now. Yeah,
12 or 13 is when the critical thinking skills start to kick in, the higher level thinking skills, and that's when you should be prepared for the onslaught of questions, and probably some challenging from her.
Okay. And just a quick follow-up question. You said, I think, typological tales?
Yes.
Was that the term you used?
Yes.
I've never heard that. What is that?
So there are certain types of stories that appear repetitively in certain mythological traditions. They're called typologies. Right. And this story is meant to convey a specific message. And so if you go through the Bible, you'll see this sort of thing over and over again. There's. Right.
Is it like the Great Flood? Is that an example?
That's not really one. So, for example, the story about Moses and why Moses ended up, in the bulrushes, getting discovered by, I guess what was the Pharaoh's sister or whatever. Anyway, supposedly there was this bounty on the heads of young male children, and so he was sent down the river in a reed basket to save him from this. Well, fast forward to, Jesus, and supposedly they had to leave because there was a bounty on the heads of young male children, and so they had to get him out of town so he wouldn't get killed.
Right.
And so that's one example of a typology. There are others in the Bible. There are others in various other mythologies out there. So if you look for stuff like that, where it's a very similar story, it's kind of like, you're familiar with the TV Tropes website?
Yeah.
Think of it as like a TV trope.
Okay, yeah, I got it.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, thanks for the call.
That's all I had. Thanks for the time.
All right, cool.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
All right. Yeah, parenting with kids in a secular household. What's interesting is when you've got a kid who's been raised as an atheist, as mine has, and you try to explain Easter to him, not the bunny rabbits and the Easter eggs and stuff, because pagan rituals are, pagan fertility rituals are fairly easy to explain. It's the whole nailing a guy to a piece of wood and then waiting for him to resurrect at 3 days, and then there's also the whole communion thing, explaining that Catholics actually believe you're eating the God, which is a whole nother thing to look up sometime.
And trying to tell the story without it sounding completely ridiculous.
Yeah, and then, and the look on his face when you're explaining this to him, he's like, oh, gross, why would somebody want to do that?
Yeah.
So it's like, exactly.